Why is banking as a service so hot right now?
Yeah, it's completely true. Every company is striving to become a fintech company.
I think the demand for instant gratification is because we live in a digital world today.
Loving the music. Good music, everybody. Hey, everybody. Welcome. Happy, I don't know, what is today? Tuesday? I don't even know, everyone. That's how my day's gone so far. It's been a fun morning. I'm on my ninth cup of coffee, which I enjoy. Glad to see everybody here. If you don't know me, why are you watching this? No, my name is Sam Maule, managing partner for 11FS here in North America. Welcome to episode 9 of the 11FS Newsroom. And it helps if you mute yourself on LinkedIn or you hear yourself in your ear, which is very annoying. Glad to see everyone here. Glad you could join us. Please, in the comment section, let us know where you're at in the world. Let us know where you're coming from. Obviously, if you have questions as we dive in with our guests, great place to post them. Our producer will be monitoring those and we'll get to you. In this weekly show, we take a deep dive into the biggest news stories of the week that's just gone by. And don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn so you never miss an episode. What you just saw was the trailer of our new documentary series about banking as a service. The second episode was released last week. Subscribe to our YouTube channel so you never miss an episode. Go to bit.ly/decoding BAAS to find out more. That's bit.ly/decoding BAAS to find out more. All right. Today, we're bringing you a special industry announcement. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my guest. So please join me in welcoming my good friend, Ben Metz. He's the head of digital at Jack Henry. And Niko Karvounis. He is the head of financial institution products at Plaid. Hey, guys. How you doing?
Great.
Good to have you guys back on. These guys are, they've done this a million times. They know what they're doing. We've had them on the show before. So glad to have you guys here. Niko, you are in lovely Brooklyn.
Yes, sir.
All right. How was the weather in Brooklyn, by the way?
Beautiful, actually. Mid-50s, crisp and sunny. It's one of those days where it feels like fall instead of winter or summer. You get about 5 of those a year now, but they're nice when you get them.
I miss Brooklyn and New York so much. I swear, I need a real meal. And Ben Metz in a farm studio somewhere in Iowa. Ben, how are you?
I'm doing great, Sam. I'm doing good.
Any new farm animals? Anything you want to let us know about? Should go out? Nothing? No.
No, it's fun. It's funny.
I'm so disappointed in you, Ben. You know what you're getting for Christmas from me? A chicken. I'm buying you a chicken. And we're going to name it Sam. And from now on this show, the chicken will join us. All right, everybody. Let's first do this before we dive into the special announcement. Let's talk about what you do at your companies. And Ben, why don't we start with you real quick? Tell us what Banno is, what it is for Jack Henry, and what you do.
Sure. I joined Wade Arnold now of Move fame about a decade ago to start helping build Banno, and then sold it to Jack Henry 6 years ago. I was the chief technology officer when we were acquired, and I decided to stay with the team. Most of the team stayed with me at Jack Henry, and we decided to build, banking as a service on top of Jack Henry's core systems. So that's what we've been up to. In terms of what I do at Jack Henry, I lead and run all of the business units that really have products that are consumer facing. So anything that really runs on the internet is in my group. So that would be Banno. Also our treasury and commercial products. So everything we're doing on the business and commercial front. as well as a couple of acquisitions that we've made for the last couple of years. Gzio, which is a PFM data platform, and then a second company we acquired about 2 years ago, an account opening platform called Bolts. So those are all in my domain. So yeah.
So this is easy, folks. Ben is exactly who you want leading your team. When we're talking about modernizing banking and financial services, the team at Banno is fantastic. Nice shout out to Wade Arnold, who's looking more and more like Jack from Twitter with that flipping beard that he's been growing. We'll have to get Wade on just so we can make fun of his beard.
Beard fast. Like it's like I'll see him and he's clean shaven, and then all of a sudden, bam, he's got 5 inches of hair on his face.
I'm not buying that it's real. I think he's getting extensions. And speaking of that, Niko, how are you, sir? Tell us a little bit about your role at Plaid and what you do.
Yeah, sure. My beard is real, which is partly why it's so sad versus Ben's. But I am a head of product for institutions, as you mentioned. So I lead our product strategy, product development, and integrations with financial institutions. I joined Plaid early last year. It's kind of crazy. This year has warped all sense of time, but it was early last year that I joined Plaid by way of I had co-founded a company called Quovo, which was mostly brokerage data and analytics, and we joined Plaid last year. And since then, building up our institutions practice. So thinking about how to work more closely with financial institutions on connectivity, on product development, and general data integration and open finance strategy in the ecosystem. And I do that primarily out of New York, but right now, everybody's working out of anywhere. So location doesn't mean as much as it used to, but that's sort of my home base.
Yeah, the blend of Quovo and Plaid made all the sense in the world. We had the opportunity to be in New York. I think it was the day after y'all did the final signing with the team at Plaid. And I was interviewing Lowell Putman with one hell of a hangover, everybody. Just going to get that out there. And he gave one of the best interviews post-hangover I've ever seen. So congrats to Lowell. The team, it makes sense. It is amazing. Plaid is so hot right now. I think we can just say that. As is the team at Banno, what they're able to do. So since I'm giving you guys all these congratulations, let's jump into the news. So we do have some breaking news, and this is all around Plaid Exchange and what's going on between Plaid and Banno. So why don't we start with you, Niko, first. Can you talk a little bit about what Plaid Exchange is, and then the two of you kind of chat about what's going on between Banno and Plaid?
Yeah, sure. So Plaid itself is a financial connectivity platform. It's a data network that powers fintech, right? So basically, if you're watching this, you're probably clued in enough to know some of the basics. But nonetheless, if you connect your financial account, your bank account to an app, it's the kind of service that we provide, right? So allowing an app to integrate with Plaid and then build on us so that we then connect to the financial institution to bring that into the app. Plaid Exchange is our API and our API platform that integrates Plaid with the institution. So not Plaid in the apps, not Plaid in the fintechs per se that are using the app to have connectivity or aggregation baked into their user experience, but to integrate with the bank itself. So that when you go and you find your institution in the app that you love, there is a robust API integration through Plaid Exchange between Plaid and that institution once you find it and want to connect it to an app or a service. And so we launched Plaid Exchange earlier this year. It's been a wonderful year for it. We really saw a lot of demand for pushing the industry to the next level with the right partners, which is what today's all about, in terms of moving toward open finance and moving toward a seamless connectivity so that no matter where you bank, when you search for your bank in an app and you want to connect it, you know that there's a robust, comprehensive, well-designed, elegant API between Plaid and the bank that's going to power that connection, create comprehensive data flow, reliable information, and the kind of connectivity that everyone should have for their app experience, regardless of where they bank. That's a little bit of the basics about Plaid and Plaid Exchange.
So Ben, as the person responsible for the team doing this integration at Banno, and Niko mentioned it a little bit, right? The opportunity to open this up to financial institutions. It seems like a natural fit for a company like Jack Henry and what you do at Banno. So you can talk about some of the work that you've been doing with Plaid Exchange.
Yeah, let me back up and start. Well, first of all, Niko,
Every time I ask
wanna-
Ben a question, he always says, "Let me back up and start." I swear to God, I'm going to get that on a recording, everybody. I can't. We order drinks. We order drinks. And Ben will go, "Let me back up." Every damn time. Go ahead, Ben. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I
Sorry.
feel obligated. Well, first of all, just one thing, Niko. I really loved what Quovo did. So, big props to your work there.
Thank you.
But I always have to say this as a context. What we're working on, and specifically what we care about, is making sure that community financial institutions can compete in the future. So that's fundamental, and that's always the place that I'm coming from, which is sometimes not well understood by the rest of the world of fintech. And so our work at Jack Henry is to make sure that a community financial institution can be a centralized place for their customers. The thing is that I think everyone knows that almost anybody in the United States is going to have multiple relationships with multiple financial institutions, and that's where Plaid comes in. So if your primary depository relationship or your business and commercial relationship is with a community bank, say in a place like Kansas City or something. And we all know what's happened with COVID and PPP. There's a lot of new relationships with community financial institutions because they really got to the table during this whole period. But what we want to do is make sure we enable that ecosystem for the community financial institution at zero lift and zero cost, because what they're facing is quite expansive in terms of the disruption. So what we're trying to do is really be a way that we kind of term it as we want to be a platform of platforms. So for the community financial institution, we want to deliver a platform to the community financial institution that they can lead and run if they want, or we can help them do so. So we did what we're doing with Plaid right now, we did with Intuit last year. We're bringing that to the table as well. So when we say platform of platforms, what we mean is we want to make sure we can go bring all of those integrations to the table across that sort of landscape. And obviously Plaid is, I think, the largest player on the landscape in terms of just, large scale banking as a service platform. So we're really excited to get this done. The work begins imminently. There's been a lot of work, between our companies, between Jack Henry and Plaid over the last 6 to 9 months, just working out the details. But I couldn't be more excited. I couldn't be more happy to get this to the table for our banks and credit unions that are running on top of the Jack Henry platform.
For anybody that knows Ben and hears him speak, I think it's pretty fair to say every time he's on stage, he does circle back to that point that his central ethos, and I'm speaking for you, Ben, so you can correct me if I'm wrong, but your central ethos is community banks and credit unions are essential to the lifeblood of the U.S. Economy. They are a lifeblood to smaller communities, and so there is a essential theme that runs throughout the work that you do, that you provide the best services and best lift that you can for them. Is that a fair comment?
Yes. Yep. Well said, Sam.
So, and I would back that up 100%. And Niko, I know with the services like this that Plaid provides, y'all believe that too?
Yeah, I was about to say that's sort of part of the beauty of this, right? Like we're both technologists, but I think both, again, maybe speaking for Ben, but from what I can gather, and for our organizations, very mission driven as well, right? In terms of why we're doing this and the importance of democratizing these capabilities and this connectivity, so that it's not just a few large institutions that basically have their own tech teams internally, right? There's thousands of institutions that need partnership. Ben was saying some folks can run it themselves. Some folks want, Ben or Jack Henry to do it, creating optionality for smaller institutions so that they can have all the capabilities that they deserve to have, and then creating the technology infrastructure and the integration with things like Plaid Exchange so that, we are collectively as partners essentially future-proofing these community institutions and credit unions, right? Technology, excuse me, technology moves very fast, especially at firms like ours. And we want to make sure that they have access, reliable connectivity as we move forward. And as Ben and his team keep delivering on the rest of the digital roadmap for the institutions, I do think this is a core foundation of it that we want to make sure is really cemented and designed well to future-proof their capabilities going forward.
It's one thing to create optionality. I'm preaching now. This is just for you, Brian McCarty. It's one thing as a service provider, like the companies that y'all represent, to talk about democratizing financial services and creating optionality. It's another to do it at zero lift and zero cost. I'll just go ahead and say that, right? And I think that's a point that I know you touched on, Ben and Niko, but it's one I think that you should probably scream a little bit louder. So what do you mean by zero cost, zero lift there, Ben, for your customers?
So for every customer that has a Banno contract today, they are going to get this integration at zero lift and zero cost. So just once we turn it on for everybody, it'll be on by default. Obviously, the financial institution, we really believe in financial institution control. So we really believe that the community financial institution should have control of their platform. Absolutely, absolute control. But it will be on by default. At no cost to them. Anybody who signs a Banno contract in the future will also basically pay. They will pay zero. They are going to get the Plaid integration as part of the platform for free. And I want to say one word about that. I think it's really important, and this is just a big shout out to Jack Henry. It's sort of the simplistic way to say it is that as technology has progressed over the last 2 decades, the cost of delivering service to a customer from any financial institution has gone up, right? So up and to the right. And for a community financial institution, that is really, really tough, right? It's super, super tough. So their costs are just escalating and there's no real end in sight. And, Jack Henry has the sort of scope and reach and capability to go, we need to help manage the overall cost of the future. The cost of what it's going to take to compete in the future. We can manage that and deliver real sort of what I call deep rooted value in the platform for our community financial institutions, because we have to work at that. And then the other side of the coin is that we have to keep, again, with Jack Henry's scale and reach, we have to keep working to deliver value that moves things to the other side of the balance sheet of the community financial institution. Generally, digital products live on the cost center side of the balance sheet, right? So a big part of what we're doing here is a sort of first phase of then providing real value back over to the other side. Because at the end of the day, the best businesses in the world are businesses where everybody wins, where the consumer wins, where Jack Henry wins, the community financial institution wins, big players like Plaid, win as well. So win, 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 win on this one. That's why it's so exciting. It's hard to get this kind of, multi-dimensional win, if you will.
So 2 quick questions. One, was that a metal coffee cup, black metal coffee cup, Ben? Are you so on brand in your barn that you're drinking?
I actually didn't intend this, but I'll give a shout out to Autobooks. This is an Autobooks coffee cup that they sent me for Christmas, I think, last year.
What a segue. So this is for you, Niko. So Derek Sutton from Autobooks asked a great question in the comments. So I'm going to go to you first, Niko, on this. Is there a good early use case? Hi, Derek. We all love you in Detroit. Is there a good early use case to use as an example for this that you could point out?
Yeah, I mean, the core foundational use case, right, is ensuring that your accounts at Jack Henry, right, that wherever your accounts are held, when you want to connect them to an app, there is a reliable two-way mutual bidirectional authentication and data flow through the Plaid Exchange API, right? So the use case is pushing the technology and the innovation of the thing you already do every day or try to do every day, right, on your app forward. And that's sort of the win-win-win that Ben was mentioning, right? It's like if you're an end user and you're trying to connect your accounts, you've got the power of the Plaid Exchange integration behind it, right? If you're an app that has demographics of people who might be at some of these smaller community institutions, right, who are going to be very likely to try and connect those accounts, it's a win, right? And if you're the community institution or the credit union, this is now the first step of creating a data infrastructure where we can create more value over time, as Ben was saying. But that very first step core use case is that connectivity that I mentioned. And we do view this, as a first step in a long partnership in building this out and creating that value for the institutions, the users, the developers in the industry as well. Ben was, that was inspiring, honestly, because we think the same way in terms of moving toward open finance, right? We really believe in open finance, like having it be and being honest about it, right? Which is why we're approaching it the way that we are with Ben and his team in terms of enabling the institutions to have this capability. One of the things that, historically, if you just think about that core use case of connecting accounts, right? There's hundreds of institutions that work with Ben and his team. There's a lot that don't, right? Just in the world. And one of the things to think about is someone is trying to connect their account at your institution to their favorite app, or not even their favorite app, an app that they might urgently need, right? Because they're trying to apply for a loan, they're trying to do something, right? Like you're stuck at home right now and your entire everyone's financial lives is, under some form of disruption. And we want a world where it doesn't matter what your bank is, but that's going to connect, and it's going to connect well, and it's going to connect reliably. And traditionally, you have a world where some institutions have 5 people who are spending every day making sure that connection works appropriately. Smaller institutions might have no one, right, historically. And we really want to have a technology solution that scales and partners that have the same mindset and the same commitment investment that we do, so that those are just at full parity, right? So that if you're connecting that no matter what, doesn't matter if there's 30 guys at Bank 1 and 2 people or 0 people at Credit Union 2, we have an integration in place in all the right parts so that is the comparable quality, reliability.
Yeah, Derek, I'll give you a use case that's off the top of my head, and this is coming sideways. So Ben and Niko, you can tell me if I'm off base here, but think about what happened with the pandemic, right? In the U.S. economy. So, we hit March and April with shutdowns, and the PPP program comes into play, and you've got small businesses across the country scrambling to be able to get data from, financial statements from the financial institutions or their lenders across the piece. And you've got small institutions like credit unions and community banks scrambling to service them. And I know, for example, because I've talked with folks like Corey LeBlanc at Origins Bank or Jill Castilla at Citizens Bank of Edmond in Oklahoma, where literally their entire staff, they only had 50 people, their entire staff pivoted to try to support this. And that was literally a business life-threatening situation where you had to be able to turn quick. And, if you're not aware, the pandemic isn't going anywhere until this vaccine is widely distributed. So we've got, several months more of this. So when you talk about servicing your different 300 banks, Ben, a lot of them are not in Brooklyn, right? They're in, Cedar Falls, Iowa, North Dakota. Literally
all over the country in urban and rural, areas. The thing that I wanted to also say, and I think this is in context of your question, what we're trying to make sure we do here is some of what we talked about in our discussions with Plaid. I'm trying to think through, what I can say about some of the discussions we had, but part of what we wanted to do, we're very aware that there is use cases we can't think of right now. Makes sense? So to answer part of Derek's question, there is use cases, but part of what my ethos here is, and Jack Henry's ethos is, that somebody has to start to begin to solve the chicken and egg problem. Does that make sense? So like somebody has to get to the table. You have things like FDX, which we're big believers in, but until you have some major players, building things on top of that standard, then it's not going to matter, because you still have a chicken and egg problem. You show up with a standard and nobody's using it. And that's not I really am a big believer in standards, but somebody has to get to the table. And I just think that, at Jack Henry, with its scale and reach and its care and concern for community financial institutions, we can do that. And of course, there's probably 100 use cases that I can't think of right now. The other thing that's important to mention, that's in context of this question, Sam, is that the entire Banno platform, along with Jack Henry's middleware platform, we deliver to a community financial institution. The entire thing is open and documented. And we're working on getting all of that exposed on the open internet. And it's a very much a work in progress, but the entirety of the platform is open, and our community financial institutions get that. There's nothing and we dog fooded it ourselves. So we've dog fooded it for 5 years. So everything in our platform, 100%, there's no back doors. All of our apps use our API platform. Our banks and credit unions get that out of the box for when they pay for a licensing fee, they get that out of the box. They don't pay extra for it. All of our institutions, as we release this, we're releasing this kind of incrementally over this year. As we've done that, all of our institutions that have signed contracts in the past got grandfathered in. So that is a big building block here, because when you talk about use cases, to answer Derek's questions, it's going to come in context with some fintech comes to the table, as you can pick them in the next 5 years, and they want to do a thing. And whatever that thing might be, some context of the dimension of the Jack Henry platform APIs that we're bringing to the table, and then with the Plaid integration, I think there's a ton of things that are possible, things I can't think of.
I think that's right. It's much more, I think the model should be like technology partnership going forward, right? As opposed to sort of trying to solve the one thing today and walk away from it. Like, we're trying to build a future of possibility and innovation. And so that's laying that foundation today. And then that foundation, that's a real springboard. It's really exciting. I think Ben said it well.
So I got a question for you, Niko, because I think Ben hit on a really good point, this concept of partnerships, right? And that it has to benefit everybody. So obviously, Plaid and Jack Henry and Banno got in on this early, right? You could see the fit that's there. So looking beyond even Jack Henry, what are you looking for in partners? When we're talking about this, who makes sense? And I think obviously Jack Henry is an excellent example of this. Yeah.
I mean, it's a complicated ecosystem, which means there's a lot to navigate, but also means there's a lot of opportunities, right? So you have technology providers to financial institutions that are helping them manage their platforms, that are helping them thrive and grow and sort of keep the lights on or innovate over the course of business, right? So we're talking to a number of technology providers, number of API management platforms. There are folks out there, who we actually announced something earlier this year with MuleSoft, right? Like there are different providers doing different things within the stack where we will need to plug into. And so we want to be really thoughtful and comprehensive in terms of where we build these partnerships. So thinking about platforms, thinking about API management tools, API management platforms, thinking about the implementation teams, who are the firms that institutions might work with to get technology projects done, right? To sort of stand up something like Plaid Exchange. I don't know what the implementation model is at Banno, actually, Ben. I don't know if there's sort of separate teams for some institutions or what, but some institutions need more help setting stuff up, right? Just as he sort of suggested earlier, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. And so there's definitely firms and groups that do that as well. And, we are really active in a number of the industry groups as well. And so we want to talk to folks who maybe even aren't directly platforms or technology providers or development implementation partners or API tools or API platforms, but care about this stuff, right? Like you can tell sort of like industry groups, advocacy groups, there's a theme in what Ben and I are talking about, that there is a mission here and there is sort of an empowerment and democratization initiative that we are moving forward with. And you don't actually have to care about, the fields and API responses, right? To understand the value of what we're trying to do. So Plaid-Exchange at plaid.com is the email for folks who want to just sort of say hello and see if there's some opportunities. I would personally forget the dash if I were listening to myself say it. So I'm going to repeat it, Plaid-Exchange at plaid.com. But that's where someone can go if they want to learn more.
So I was reading through a little bit of the press release. So I'm going to read this bit, if you don't mind. So with Plaid Exchange, financial institutions can bring an API solution to market in as little as 12 weeks. Implementing Plaid Exchange also means saving on the costs associated with standing up an API, such as building tools, programs to manage developer testing, implementation, and risk management. So Niko, just ignore me for a second. So Ben, normally when a company says you can do this in as little as 12 weeks, that usually means 2 years from personal experience. You're going to tell me that's a lot different this time, right?
Well, yeah, for us, because we built an open platform to start with, and we built it on open standards, we built it correctly. I'll try to stay out of the geek weeds as much as I can, but it won't take us long. I don't even think it'll take us 12 weeks. I don't know what the exact estimate is, but it's a handful of weeks for us to do this, to get the lift done. But yeah, no, this is not, again, if you build systems correctly, doing the plumbing work shouldn't take, traditional sort of middleware based, integrations. That's a few decades ago, but that's still sort of current modern banking plumbing. So this gets us to a much faster, set of plumbing and sort of ecosystem. And I'm going to repeat myself, but again, what we're trying to do is sort of build a siphon effect, if you will, or start to sort of seed the ecosystem. We hope more things like this will happen. We're going to continue down the path. There's other platform players, certainly not as large as Plaid, but we're going to continue down the path and do those integrations. So for any of our customers watching, we're going to continue to do what we just did with Intuit and Plaid. We're going to keep adding to that list. We're in conversations with all the major players. So that's the other thing to note. We're not stopping here. And what that does is it just creates a fluid possible future. Because the other thing I want to say too is that, for a community financial institution specifically, and as you're watching, big tech, continue to enter the banking game, we're going to need, all hands on deck to compete. Yeah. And so without this kind of ecosystem that we're plumbing with Plaid right here, I think it's going to be extremely challenging in the future. So, a lot of what we're doing here is to make sure we can allow our community financial institution to compete with their consumer.
So add another good comment come in from David Cunningham. Hey, David, how you doing? He said, I'd love to see Jack Henry come to Europe. I'd love to see Ben go to Europe too, everybody. The tier 2 and 3 banks are really underserved for lending solutions. Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I'm going to give an old timer comment because if folks didn't know, I've been in the banking space for quite a while. I am old enough to remember when I met with one of the founders of Plaid, Zach Parrott, and he was telling me his idea. And I said, that's really nice. Yodely's got it covered. That sounds cute. Good luck. I remember when Jack Henry acquired Banno, and I thought, well, Banno's dead. That's going to kill it. And I was proved wrong in both cases. So just Niko, because again, I understand, you co-founded Quovo and you come over with it, but just real quick, what do you think has been the secret to Plaid's success for overcoming, skeptics like me and proving me wrong? I'm really curious.
Wow. Yeah.
Not listening to me is one, obviously. Anything I say, go the opposite. It's the
opposite. Thing. Yeah. The age-old opposite rule. Yeah. I mean, there's obviously a number of reasons, right? It's hard to build a company, and there's a million sort of bullets on the slide of what you did right and wrong, and how things played out. I do think there's actually something in what Ben was saying that's part of it, which is being really diligent, thoughtful, and dedicated about plumbing, like about the hard stuff, about how you design the product, and about what is the developer experience, what is the use case, being really rigorous and thoughtful about that, because it's a highly complicated business. It's a highly complicated product, right? Like, we're not rolling out, an app where you're swiping, right? Whatever. Like that's complicated, but it's like, this is an ecosystem business. We are embedded in complexities. I think on the product side, there's been a lot of diligent thoughtfulness and dedication on that. And then, of course, you get to sort of the organization itself, right? The culture and the mission. I think the mission is also really part of it. Like, when you're down in the weeds doing that work and being rigorous and thoughtful and disciplined about it, you got to keep why you're doing it in mind and have that as a North Star as well. And there's a bunch of choices you never see coming where those are your sort of North Stars. Like, build the best thing for what you're doing and remember why you're doing it. And then there's all these forks in the road, right, where you pick the right fork by relying on those two things, weighting them appropriately, and then you pick the direction. And you just do that a million times, right? And you keep hoping that you do the right fork.
Man, I'll say in the U.S.
That's really well said, Niko.
It is. I wrote down, we are embedded in complexities, and underline that twice. You made my notebook, Niko, because I love that quote. Yeah, I know, the Sam Maule notebook that he'll lose right after this. I don't know where I put it. But that is a really good line. And folks, I'm going to flat out say it. In the U.S., when it comes to fintechs, easily top 3 for me is Plaid. I'll just go ahead and get that out of the way. All right. In my personal opinion, that I am most continue to be bullish on. Ben, just real quick, as kind of a final thought for you. Why has Banno succeeded at Jack Henry? Obviously, and you got to give me something different than what Niko said. I get North Star. I believe that 100%. I've already talked about how you get on stage constantly and talk about community banks and credit unions. But doing an integration and acquisition like that, most fail. I'll just be blunt. So why did Banno work?
I feel like I could write a small book about it, or at least do like work to do like a Harvard Business Review on it. There's a lot of reasons, but the number one reason, honestly, is Dave Foss.
There you go.
So it takes leadership. It takes leadership, you know, in a company like Jack Henry. And I mean, I cannot give Dave enough credit. Like, I cannot. He somehow was able to see the potential in Banno. He made a big bet. This is an odd acquisition for Jack Henry. If you look at the history, I mean, Jack Henry's done a lot of acquisitions. There isn't really one like this, you know. They did it, and then they really created a protected space for us to work inside the company. And there's good and bad about that, and you know, I could write a book about all of that. But big shout out to Dave specifically, and then Greg Adelson, who's our chief operating officer, he's the one that we first met inside Jack Henry. He was running the payments business inside Jack Henry, and we did a partnership and a deal in the early days before we were acquired. So you know, it's executives like Greg and Dave that really shepherded this through. I don't think it would have been possible without them. You know, there's a long tail of other things that you can talk about that, you know, wouldn't have been possible. Like, it wouldn't have been possible if the team didn't stay. You know, you know, a lot of people talk about me or whatever, but this team that I get to work with every day is just, they're mind-blowingly good. They're mind-blowingly good, and they decided to stay. But all of that was work that Dave Foss also helped, and the other executives like Mark Forbes. There's a number of people I should name. You know, Mark Forbes, who was the chief technology officer, he retired this year. You know, I worked for him for about 2.5 years. Without him, this doesn't happen. But really critically, it was Dave Foss at the CEO level, really making sure this worked.
Yeah, that felt like an Academy Awards acceptance speech, because you didn't name your wife, you didn't go anywhere near there, and she will give you hell for that, as she should, Ben, because I'm going to let her know. So folks, we're kind of up against the clock. I think it's pretty obvious when you see representation like this from two incredibly successful companies like Plaid and like Banno and Jack Henry. These are the type of folks we want to see in fintech. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. You know, Ben and Niko, you're allowed to blush, but again, I agree with you. You know, technology is technology, and it's always going to be changing. But for me, where I work, it's about the people. I'm just flat out. That's the reason I came to 11FS, is the people you get to work with, you know, and who you get to be with every day. So two great representatives from two great companies, and folks, we're out of time. So let's do this. Niko, start with you. If you want to learn more, you know, about this, if you want to learn more about Plaid Exchange, I know you gave the link once. Let's do it again. Where's the best place to reach out?
Yeah, I can send an email to plaid-exchange@plaid.com, or check out our blog, blog.plaid.com.
And Ben, what's your cell phone number? Because he doesn't check Twitter. God knows people. So who should they reach out to at Jack Henry? And
well,
Banno?
Best place to go would be, there's really 3 domains now. So banno.com, jackhenry.dev, and jackhenry.design. Those are our primary places to begin the engagement process. There's ways for, you know, from there to reach in and reach out. if you want to email me directly, bmetz@jackhenry.com will work.
Perfect. All right, folks. Check out 11FS. Oh my God, we got so much content out there that is outstanding. You should be following. And also don't miss, and Ben just gave me a thumbs up, so he agrees. So don't miss our other live show, Spotlight, which goes out live on Thursday at 3:30 p.m. GMT. That's 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. Have a great week, everybody. Thanks for being here.